What's up, Wizards? It's D from Strictly Down There. We like it a magic, and today, we're looking at Ravnica Allegiance spoilers like we always do, but I'm sorry. Hey, Ziggy. Today was a little bit special because today we are officially at the halfway mark of the set. In a way, it's like, oh, we've already seen half of it. In another way, it's like, oh my god, we've only seen half of the set. So, that said, we only got like 11 cards today, so far at least. Not too much to talk about, but there are some gems in there. And at least one card that I think is guaranteed to affect standard. So let's go ahead and get to it. At first, some random limited stuff. Late last night, right after I put out my second spoiler video of the day, we got to see Senate Guildmage, but then earlier this morning we also got to see Azureus Skyguard. The first ability is at least okay. Gaining 2 life isn't super exciting, but it'll be important some of the time, especially at the price tag of just 1 white. That's pretty decent, but really it's a second ability I like. Just 1 blue mana to loot once a turn is really, really good. You can do it at the end of your opponent's turn, or in response to Guildmage getting removed, you can loot a card or something. It's just really, really cheap. Just 1 blue mana for a loot is fantastic. So I'm not saying it's a standard play or anything, but as far as limited, this is actually a really, really good Guildmage. Both of its abilities are really affordable. And Skyguard is a pretty good limited uncommon for the Osorio Skill, a sealed deck where this is one of actually your very few top-end threats. You don't have a whole lot of other creatures. This is still really good. It kind of takes over the game. It can shrink the other side of the board by 2 or 3 power at the very least and be a really formidable threat in the air. So I actually do like a lot about this. Again, even for the pretty steep price tag, it's not a bad limited uncommon. But speaking of good limited uncommons for the Osorio Skill, we saw a bunch of those today, actually. Most of the good limited stuff was for Zozo. We got to see Spirit of the Spires and Gale Drake, both rough translations on those names, but these are actually really similar cards. The white one's defensive, the Drake is offensive, and the casual Drake's deck is kind of coming together for what it's worth. Of course, Osorio Skies is a deck in pretty much every limited environment, but there's an awful lot of very strong signals that that deck is going to be very real in limited, whether you're playing sealed or draft. Drafting up the Azorius Flyers deck doesn't seem too hard when you've got uncommons like this. So looks like it's going to be really, really strong in this environment. And although it's a pretty basic, fundamental, usually available deck, it seems like it's going to have an awful lot of strong pieces this time around. But the last kind of meh card of the day is Arrestor's Admonition. This is 3 mana, 2 and a blue for an instant. Return a creature to its owner's hand, and if you cast a spell during your main phase, draw a card. Now, this is probably a little bit better than it looks. I don't know how often you'll want to devote 3 mana on your main phase to a bounce effect. But if you do, you get a card out of it. Very likely, Blink of an Eye is just a much, much better card than this. So I don't think that we're really talking about any constructed playability outside of maybe Pauper for this, but even then, you've got Blink of an Eye. But I know what you're thinking, Dev. Get to the Reyes! We want to see the Reyes. His Awaken the Erstwhile to begin here. It's 5 mana, 3 and 2 black for a sorcery. Each player discards all the cards in their hand and creates that many 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. So this is why we have Crafty Cut Purse. Not really. I'm not sure how amazing this card is. You do get to Mind Twist everybody, but then they get zombies sometimes. I'm not too sure about that. I mean, there might be some sort of combo interaction. I know I heard a couple of people mention Treasure Hunt, but I don't think that's very good. 5 mana is just so much. But I am open on this card. I'm not just calling it trash or anything. I think it's possible that there's a combo thing. We've got Reliquary Tower in standards. You just go crazy and fill your hand. And suddenly, boom, you've got a bunch of zombies. But overall, I just kind of smell a bulk rare here, But here's Revival Revenge, an Orzhov split rare. Revival is 2 hybrid mana, a black or a white, for a sorcery. Return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And Revenge is 6 mana, 4 a white and a black for a sorcery. Double your life total. Target opponent loses half their life, rounded up. I think this card is just okay. I've seen a lot of people trashing it and some people who are too excited about it, but I think it's just fine. I'm ambivalent about it for the most part. I really want to like the Revive half. You get a little mana value off of it. It's kind of card advantage in the later game. Not really card advantage, but you trade this in your hand for a creature out of your graveyard. You can repeat in the enter the battlefield triggers, at sorcery speed, yeah, but for really cheap. Fairly easy to cast card. I like a lot about this. And it kind of reminds me of a Fine Finality, at least on the first half, except instead of 2 creatures to your hand, you get a creature right to the battlefield. Which seems fine. There's an awful lot of creatures that work with that, from Banalish Marshal to Midnight Reaper, which might be really actually important. And, I could sit here and name 3-drops all day, Plague Crafter. There's a lot of stuff. Merfolk Branchwalker. I don't want to keep going with this. Stop me. But Militia Bugler, I don't know. There's stuff is all I'm saying. And even if you have to get a 2-drop like a Danto Vanguard back or something, I guess you're fine with that too. So this is not a terrible card on the front half, but the back half doesn't look incredible to me necessarily, but it doesn't have to be. You know, even if there's a 10 or 15% chance that you cast Revenge and get a huge bump in your life total, or take an opponent, you know, from 20 to 10, that seems fine. You know, if they play to Shockland and they go from 18 to 9 or whatever, that seems okay for your 6-mana investment, especially if you're sorry, I have to keep Ziggy from scratching when he's 6 inches away from the microphone. You're probably wondering why Ziggy isn't up here. It's because he's his own person, and he can make the choice to come over here. I'm not gonna, like, make him do that. That would be messed up of me. But I can make him stop, like, chewing on his toes right in front of the microphone. That's probably not the most pleasant sound. But anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, Revenge. Revenge is just okay in exactly the right situation, but it's worth having in that, again, 10 or 15% situation. So I don't mind the second half of this. I don't think it's very good, but when you need it, it's not so bad. Let's take a look at a probably better split card, and that's Thrash and Threat, which I always want to call Trash and Treat, and that still kind of works. But anyway, Thrash is 2 hybrid green and red mana for an instant. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. And Threat is 4 mana, 2 are red and a green for a sorcery. Create a 4/4 red and green beast creature token with trample. I think this is a good card. Again, I'm actually more ambivalent about this card than a lot of people in the community are. Even on the Spikes Reddit, the competitive Reddit, they're just shy of freaking out about this card. I won't say that they are. They're not. They never freak out about anything. But unless they freak out about how bad a card is. That happens. But still, you know, this is, at the very least, mono green planeswalker removal, which is probably the coolest thing about the card, but it's still a really good card. You know, it's removal on the front half, given that you have a creature out, which shouldn't be too hard for green and red. But given that you have a creature out, it is removal, and that's fine. On the front half, you kind of want that, obviously. And then the back half is a threat. So it's not dead, you know, against control, where you don't really use the removal against creatures option too much. Then you can just make a big guy. But remember, this does hit planeswalkers, so if they play a Teferi, then you can immediately just fight it at instant speed with the first half of this card before they get to untap their lands or any nasty stuff, you know. So that might actually be really relevant to have, like, Carnage Tyrant or something, or even something smaller, in a Rekindling Phoenix or something. Fight a planeswalker the moment that they play them and get that first ability off, before they're able to really do anything else. So I like the front half of this card. I think there's probably better removal overall in this format than this card, but the fact that it's also stapled to a pretty meaty body is at least decent. So I do like this card a lot. I've been kind of slyly building green-red more than I've been building almost any other deck in this upcoming format. I'm more and more excited about green-red as time goes on. And I'm actually not totally sure that we fit this. We're already playing 4 copies of Lava Coil. Not sure how much more removal that we need, but this gives us a way, given again that we have a big creature out, to take out other big creatures and a main deck way of killing planeswalkers outright. So we'll probably try to fit 2 copies of this card. And again, it's pretty much never dead in any situation, so it's a free include in a lot of ways in terms of opportunity cost. So I do like this card an awful lot. It just comes down to fitting it. Let's look at BB, Benthic Biomancer. This is a card that some of the spikes are freaking out about. It's just 1 blue mana for a 1/1 with all the best creature types. Wizard, Merfolk, Mutant, or excuse me, a Merfolk Wizard Mutant. I should get that right. For 1 and a blue, you can adapt 1. And whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on Benthic Biomancer, draw a card, then discard a card. Now this is worded exactly how you want it to be. It's not whenever it adapts you loot. It's whenever you put a +1/+1 counter on it you loot. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with this. Just in the Merfolk deck, this plus Deep Root Elite is a big game. That sounds really, really good. So I just like that. Plus Cumina can put counters on it. So I like it. For the Merfolk deck that needed more 1-drops anyway. So it could... I don't think that it makes Merfolk a thing immediately. Not really, but I'm not going to go that far and freak out about it and be just like the people I was just kind of poking fun at. But it is at least a perfect 1-drop for that deck. And note that it's a wizard, so it could allow you to play stuff like Wizard's Retort, which means it could also go into the mono blue tempo deck. Not too sure about that one because it has absolutely no evasion. You know, you want Curious Obsession to be good on all your 1-drops. That's not necessarily the case here. But I will say that this allows you to loot at least the one time, and that'll help you get some stuff that a deck obviously wants to draw cards. And no one's going to dispute that, so this is at least a consideration for that deck, but I'm not sure that it's strong enough to cut something. But it's at least worth bringing up. There's that new Essence Scatter that we just saw the other day. Costs 2 blue mana, counters a creature. You can put a counter on a guy. And this would be really good with that. So there's a lot of cool interactions with this card at a really, really low mana investment. So it's almost certain to see some amount of play in some deck somewhere. We've only got a couple of cards left here. Here's Ethereal Absolution. It's 6 mana, 4, a white and a black for an enchantment. Creatures you control get +1/+1. Creatures your opponents control get -1/-1. You can pay 2, a black and a white for exile target card from an opponent's graveyard. If it was a creature card, you create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying. Looks like they're having a party on the art there. But anyway, let's talk about the card. Jokes aside, I actually don't hate this. I know a lot of people do. 6 mana is a huge investment. But once you get past this costs 6 mana, the text on the card is unbelievable. You know, the immediate comparison here is the Immortal Sun. And here's the thing. This is worse than the Immortal Sun. I was going to be like hemming and hawing like, no, this is worse than the Immortal Sun. The Immortal Sun is way better when dropped against a deck like Control or any other really slow roll deck where it gives you a bunch of card advantage over a game. I really do tend to like that card way better, and it's easier to cast for what that's worth, you know. But especially once that card rotates, and especially against all the different tokens decks that look viable in the upcoming format. This card is better than the Immortal Sun. So that is worthy of thought. Whether it's a sideboard piece against, I don't know, if green-white tokens is still kind of a thing in the upcoming format, or Afterlife is a thing in the upcoming format, some sort of aristocrats, or even just a straight-up aggro Afterlife deck or something. This is really, really worth a sideboard slot or two, because it pumps all your guys, and it kills every token, and it negates things like Adonta the first fort most of the time, so that seems really fine. It allows you, I haven't heard anybody talk about this, like even on message boards, but it allows you to pull any card out of a graveyard, not just creatures. And that's kind of impactful, depending on what your opponent has in their graveyard or what their game plan is. So that could be important. 4 mana is kind of a steep ability cost there, but you still are able to pull, possibly important cards, or Kindling Phoenix, Arclight Phoenix, and stuff like that out of their graveyard, and get yourself a 2/2 flyer for it. Because remember, your guys get +1/+1. So this is both. Here's the thing. Let me put it this way. Immortal Sun is not a win condition in and of itself. This is a win condition. It's an anthem effect for all your dudes. It buffs any guys that you make with it. It's a creature factory in and of itself. And it nerfs your opponent, even if they're playing like a mid-range deck. It helps to nerf your, opponent's offense a little bit. So I do like a lot about this. Zealous Persecution is a fine card, but is a static Zealous Persecution for 6 mana a good card? It's yet to be seen, but that's my point exactly. It's yet to be seen. I've seen a lot of people write the card off, and I just don't think it's time to do that. I think it's really meta-dependent whether or not this sees sideboard slots, but it's actually not too hard for me to envision a meta in which it does. Hey you guys, Edit and Dev. They spoiled a couple cards while I was in the middle of editing this video, so I figured before we get to the really juicy stuff, I'll talk about this brand new stuff. We got Mirror March. This is actually going to take me longer to read than to actually evaluate. It's 6 mana, 5 and a red for an enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, flip a coin until you lose a flip. For each flip you won, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Those tokens gain haste. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step. This is your bulk, janky, bad red enchantment that costs a lot of mana for the set. That's a running theme. It's almost like a gag now. This is bad. Even for 6 mana, there's no guarantee you actually ever generate any real value off of this, because you have to flip coins and stuff. The card is just terrible. But we also got Sharktocrab, so I had to come on the mic to talk about a Sharktocrab. It's 4 mana. It's 2, a green, and a blue for a 4/4 fish octopus crab with adapt 1 for 4 mana. And whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on Sharktocrab, tap target creature an opponent controls. That creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So actually being able to freeze stuff down when you adapt this is really good. And note how it's worded. Just like benthic Biomancer, you don't have to This doesn't just happen when you adapt it. It's whenever a +1/+1 counter is put on it. So if you've got ways to shift around counters, put counters on this, whatever, then you can actually freeze up like 2, 3, 4 guys over the course of a game, depending on what you can do. You can tap down all your guys for a couple of turns. Like, this can effectively freeze your opponent's board as it gets bigger. So I really like this in limited, especially if you've got, fancy ways to put extra counters on it. It actually seems really, really good. It pretty much never touches standard, but at least a 4-mana 4/4 is a decent rate in and of itself. It can get a little bit bigger, and when it does get bigger, it has a really, really good, effect. Good trigger. So I think that this is like almost like a hair away from standard playable, but I won't go that far. I don't think it does anything there, but in limited, this is a really stacked Simic Uncommon. And then finally today, or at least so far, I'm going to reload Mythic Spoiler before I'm done here, but I think the most impactful card of the day is Angel of Grace. This thing is nasty. 5 mana, 3 and 2 white for a 5/4 angel with flash and flying. And when Angel of Grace enters the battlefield until end of turn, damage that would reduce your life total to less than 1 reduces it to 1 instead. And you can pay 4 and 2 white and exile Angel of Grace from your graveyard to have your life total become 10. When you see flash on a big flying creature, you automatically, that's dangerous right when you start reading the card. But the card just gets better and better as you read through it. This is disgusting. If only for the reason that blue-white control and other decks like it, control decks with white in them, can now survive a Banefire. And that is massive. It just puts you at 1. So you might die the next turn. It's possible. But you also very likely won't. Sometimes Banefire is very often Banefire is the last-ditch effort. The only way they can beat you is to draw that Banefire, and they draw it. And this will turn that smile into a frown real quick, Just being able to beat Banefire the one time is all that you might need, much less the fact that you got a big beater on the battlefield that's either going to swing the game entirely for you and start attacking, or it's just going to eat whatever creatures they would otherwise attack with and try to end the game now that you're just at the 1. So, this is really good. Giant flying flash body that you can probably get away with playing in a bunch of different situations at the end of your opponent's turn or during your opponent's combat step, even if that line of text won't apply at all. Even if you're still at 12. There's going to be situations where you want to play this as removal that sticks to the battlefield as a body. So, I like so much about this, and I haven't even mentioned the final line of text. What a saving grace that is for control decks, appropriately, by the way. 6 mana seems steep, but you can just activate this at the end of your opponent's turn, or whenever you have extra mana. It doesn't have to be on your main phase or anything. Control has 6 extra mana laying around a lot in the late game. That's kind of the whole point of the deck. So if you're at, 2 or 3, or maybe you're just at 1 because this, you actually had to use the center of the battlefield trigger, and then your angel died, then yeah, you can just go back to 10. You can go from a critical, almost flatline situation right back to fairly healthy again. So this card helps you turn the corner in a variety of ways, and again, is a huge body in and of itself, so it's kind of a win condition too. I like a lot about this card, and I think that it almost certainly sees pretty immediate standard play. Again, if only because it beats Banefire, and that's such an important thing for control decks to be able to do, but it's even good in situations where it's not specifically beating Banefire, so there's just so much about the card that's good. Okay, so it happened. We did get at least one more new card today before I finished up this video, and it is very much worth pointing out. Here is Fireblade Artist right here. It's 2 mana, a black, and a red for a 2/2 human shaman with haste, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you may sacrifice a creature. If you do, Fireblade Artist deals 2 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. This is it. I am just now reading this card for the first time. I saw this card a minute ago. It was the first time I read this card. And it is very good if it is in fact worded this way. This is a rough translation. It just got spoiled, so it just got translated. But if it is worded exactly like this, then the card is very good, because note that the sacrifice a creature during your upkeep is a May ability. So at the very floor of this, it's a 2 mana, 2/2 haste, which is good, but it's also a spectacle enabler that does a good little chunk of damage to your opponent and enables aristocrats and is effectively a free sack outlet. At least just the once per turn, which isn't great. But even that is fine, considering that it's absolutely free. It has no opportunity cost whatsoever. You know, you're not skipping your second turn to play an enchantment that's a free sack outlet. You're still putting a body on the battlefield that can attack immediately. So the card is extremely aggressive. Works really well with a card like Judith. I like this card an awful lot, if you can't tell. I was really excited about the Angel. But I'm equally excited for this. I think this might be one of the best cards today because it helps enable a deck that we've all been wanting to enable for this entire spoiler season, and actually for multiple spoiler seasons. But when we saw Judith, we were like, okay, fingers crossed, and this is exactly what we're looking for. So I know we're all already brewing that deck, but this is an automatic 4 of inclusion, and imagine multiple copies of this when you need multiple sacrifice outlets and multiple free sack triggers and stuff. This is just going to help you finish off a game real quick. This in combination with Judith, and multiple copies of this in combination of Judith with Judith, is going to lead to upkeeps where on turn 5 or 6, you don't even have to attack. You can just finish off the game on your upkeep by sacrificing a couple of guys and hitting for like 6 or something. So this card is the real, you guys, and I know I've seemed super stoked, but that's probably a factor of me having just now read it for the first time, but it's also the fact that this is a card that an awful lot of us have been waiting for. This card is very serious. Also note that it hits planeswalkers, and it can sacrifice itself. That's really good, at least, again, if it's worded this way. And it doesn't say another creature, then it can sacrifice itself for just 2 extra damage to the face. So all of that, this card is good. This freaking card is good, and I wish I had a pun or something about its name or the art or blah blah. I can't do it. I can't stop freaking out about how good the card is. Did we get anything else? Let's check here. Reload. Newest spoilers. I'll do it with you guys. No, that is it. That is all for now. So I'm done for this one, but oh boy, did that get crazy at the end. But anyway, let me know how you felt about all these down there in the comments section, in the sideboard down there. You know, it's important to put our heads together during spoiler season. Let me know how you felt about my analysis and just your own feelings about these cards. And aside from that, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe if you're new. It really helps the channel grow if you do that. And you can help the channel grow by just throwing $1 into the Patreon. You know, you can help vote on what decks you want to see first this upcoming spoiler season. Pretty sure Rakdos Aristocrats or Mardu Aristocrats is top billing. But if you want to help make that decision, just throw $1 into the Patreon. I'll leave a link in the description for that. Or if you want to pre-order any of this stuff at a super low price, the first link in the description will take you to TCG Play, where you can get sealed boxes of Allegiances for way under MSRP. It's like $96, $97 right now, which is actually a pretty good deal. It's like getting a free pack, you know? So you can do that, or you can just pre-order any individual cards that you might need at super low pre-order prices. So do all that. Helps the channel when you click the link. So I just gave you a bunch of ways to click the channel. Pick one or two, you know? It's super low effort, but in any case, I'm pretty sure that's it for now, you guys. I'm so stoked about these cards. I want to talk about them for another hour, and I might get back on the mic and do that before it's all over. But in any case, I'm pretty sure I'm done. So I'll catch you cats later. I'm dead from the place. Sorry there's no Ziggy. He's actually right here. I will actually violate your will, Ziggy, and bring you over here for a second. But he was like 6 inches away from you guys the entire time. Yeah, I know, buddy. It's so terrible. You live the worst life. In any case, you do. But I'm pretty sure that I'm done. And I will catch you cats later. I'm dead from the place. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Spread love and be kind.